The rain fell hard on the old shelter. It made sounds like tiny stones hitting the metal walls. Inside, the darkness was thick and heavy. Only a small lamp gave light in the corner, and even that light seemed tired. Sat alone in his chair. He was 63 years old now. His hair had turned gray many years ago. His face carried lines that told stories of pain and loss. His hands, once steady enough to save lives on burning battlefields, now shook when he tried to hold a cup of tea. He had been a combat medic once, a good one, the best in his unit, they used to say. He served in the Terran Defense Corps for 22 years. He fought in the Outer Rim Wars against an alien species that came from a world far beyond human space. The war lasted 8 terrible years. Millions died on both sides. Entire planets burned. Now, 20 years after the war ended, nobody remembered. His medals sat in a drawer he never opened. The colony government sent him a small payment each month, just enough to survive. His neighbors did not know his name. Children walked past his shelter without looking. He was invisible, a ghost still breathing. The shelter stood at the edge of New Colony, where the city's lights faded into darkness. Here, the forgotten people lived. Here, waited for death the way a tired traveler waits for a train that never comes. Tonight the rain was especially angry. Thunder rolled across the sky like giant drums, closed his eyes and listened. Sometimes in the thunder he heard the sounds of the war, explosions, screaming, the terrible silence that came after. He tried not to remember. He always failed. The clock on his wall showed midnight when the knocking started. At first thought it was the rain playing tricks. The knocking was soft, almost gentle, but it continued again and again, becoming more desperate with each passing moment. He stood slowly, his old bones complaining. He walked to the door with careful steps. His hand touched the cold metal handle. He hesitated. Nobody ever knocked on his door. Nobody came to visit the forgotten veteran in the forgotten part of the colony. Perhaps it was a mistake. Perhaps someone had lost their way in the storm. He opened the door. The rain rushed in, bringing cold and wet, but did not notice the rain. He only saw the small figure standing before him. It was a child, but not a human child. The creature stood no taller than a 7-year-old human. Its skin was pale lavender, soft like flower petals. Its eyes were large and round, filled with a light that seemed to glow from within. Those eyes were wet with tears that mixed with the rain running down its face. His heart stopped for a moment. He knew this species. He had seen them before, long ago, in places filled with fire and death. The enemy, the aliens his unit had fought and killed, the species that had killed his friends. His first thought was to close the door. His second thought was to call for security, but before he could do either, the child spoke. "Please." The word came out broken, shaped by a mouth not made for human language. "Please help my mother. She is dying." Stood frozen. The rain continued to fall. The child continued to cry. "No one will help us," the child said. "They say we are enemies. They say we should go back to our world, but our world is gone. It is dead. We have nowhere to go." The child's glowing eyes moved to his arm. There, faded by time but still visible, was a tattoo. It showed the symbol of a medic, a cross inside a circle, the mark of one who heals. "You have the symbol," the child said. "You are a healer, please. My mother is dying. I do not want her to die." Looked at the small creature shaking in the rain. He looked at those large, desperate eyes that begged without pride or shame. He saw only a child, afraid and alone, trying to save someone they loved. Something stirred inside him. Something old and buried, something he thought had died on the battlefields of Prime. He remembered another night, another child, a human girl on a colony world that was burning. She had been trapped under fallen metal, crying for her mother, had tried to save her. He had worked for hours while the fire came closer. But in the end, the fire was faster. She died in his arms, still crying for someone who would never come. He had not been able to save her. That failure haunted him more than any wound. Now, standing in his doorway, he saw that same desperation in the eyes of an alien child. The species did not matter. The war did not matter. What mattered was a child crying in the rain, begging for help that nobody would give. "What is your name?" asked. His voice was rough from lack of use. "Lyra," the child said. "My name is Lyra." Lyra tested the name. It was soft like a song. "Where is your mother?" Hope bloomed in Lyra's glowing eyes. "Not far, in the old buildings where no one goes. Please, will you come? Will you help her?" Thought about his warm chair. He thought about his quiet life of waiting for death. He thought about what it meant to help a member of the species that had killed so many humans, that had killed his friends, that had left him with nightmares that never ended. He thought about all these things. Then he walked inside his shelter and picked up his old medical bag. The bag was dusty. He had not opened it in 15 years. The tools inside were outdated, probably useless, but he put the strap over his shoulder and returned to the door. "Show me," he said. Lyra's face changed. The tears continued to fall, but now they were mixed with something else, something that looked like amazement, like she could not believe what was happening. "You will help?" she asked. "You will really help?" "I said show me. We are wasting time." Lyra nodded quickly. She turned and began running into the rain, followed, his old legs struggling to keep up with the small alien. The rain hammered down on them. The thunder continued to roll. The streets were empty and dark, filled with shadows that moved like living things. As he ran, wondered what he was doing. He was old. He was forgotten. He had promised himself to never practice medicine again after the war. Too many people had died under his hands. Too many faces still visited him in his dreams. But tonight something had changed. A child had knocked on his door at midnight. A child had begged for help. And somehow, despite everything, despite 20 years of anger and guilt and pain, had answered. Perhaps it was foolishness. Perhaps it would end in disaster. Perhaps he would fail again, just like he had failed so many times before. But as he ran through the rain, following the small lavender figure ahead of him, felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt alive. The forgotten veteran followed the alien child into the darkness, leaving behind his shelter and his loneliness and his slow death. Ahead of him waited unknown dangers and old enemies. Ahead of him waited pain and memories and choices he could not take back. But also perhaps something more. Something that might finally give meaning to all those years of emptiness. Something that might finally let him forgive himself. The rain continued to fall and continued to run, and somewhere in the distance, a mother waited for a healer who had forgotten how to heal. Lyra moved fast through the dark streets. Her small feet made almost no sound on the wet ground. Followed as best he could, his old body struggling against the years of sitting and waiting. They left the outer edge of the colony and entered an area that maps no longer showed, the industrial district. Once this place had been full of factories and workers. Ships were built here, machines were made here, life happened here. Now the buildings stood like dead giants. Their windows were broken eyes staring at nothing. Their walls were covered with rust and forgotten paint. The colony had moved on, building newer and better things in other places. This district was left to rot, along with everything inside it. This was where the forgotten people lived. Not just forgotten veterans but others. Refugees from destroyed worlds. Workers who lost their jobs to machines. People who fell through the cracks of society and never climbed back up. And the enemy from the old war. Survivors of a species that humanity had nearly destroyed. Lyra led through narrow paths between buildings. The rain made the ground slippery and dangerous. Several times he almost fell, but he kept moving, following the small glowing figure ahead of him. Finally they arrived at a large warehouse. Its metal walls were bent and broken. Its roof had holes that let in the rain, but through the cracks in the door could see light. Someone lived here. "This way," Lyra said. She pushed open a small door hidden in the shadows. "Please hurry." Stepped inside and stopped. The warehouse was larger than he expected, and it was not empty. Everywhere he looked he saw dozens of them, old ones and young ones, males and females. They sat on blankets and old mattresses scattered across the floor. Small fires burned in metal containers, giving warmth and light. Every glowing eye in the room turned to look at. He felt their fear. He felt their hatred. To them, he was the enemy. Humans had destroyed their. Humans had killed their families. Humans had forced them to hide in abandoned buildings like animals. And now a human stood among them. An old male rose from his seat. He was taller than the others, with skin that had turned dark gray from age. A terrible scar ran across his face, from his forehead to his chin. His glowing eyes burned with anger. "Lyra," the old male said. His voice was deep and rough. "What have you done? You bring a human here. You bring the enemy into our home." "Elder, please listen," Lyra begged. "He is a healer. He can save my mother." "He is human," stepped forward, his hands becoming fists. "Humans killed my children. Humans burned our world. And you bring one here to the place where we hide from them." Other began to stand. Their fear was turning to anger, could see it in their eyes, in the way their bodies tensed. He understood. He had seen the same anger in human eyes during the war. "I came to help," said. His voice was calm, but his heart was beating fast. "Your child asked for my help, I came." "We do not need human help," said. He spat the words like poison. "We would rather die than accept help from our destroyers." "Then your people will die." Did not look away from the elder's angry eyes. "Is that what you want? To die with your pride while your children watch?" Silence fell over the warehouse. They looked at each other, uncertain, trembled with anger, but he did not speak. Lyra grabbed his hand and pulled him forward. "Please, this way. My mother is here." She led him through the crowd of watching. They moved aside as he passed, but their eyes never left him. He felt like a small animal walking through a forest of hungry creatures. In the corner of the warehouse, away from the others, a female lay on a bed made of old blankets. Her skin, which should have been lavender like Lyra's, had turned a sickly gray. Her breathing was shallow and weak. Her glowing eyes were closed. "Mother," Lyra said softly, "I brought help. A healer came." The female's eyes opened slowly. They focused on with difficulty. He saw no anger in those eyes, only exhaustion, only pain, only the look of someone who had been fighting for too long. "Human," she whispered, her voice was barely a breath. "Why would a human help us?" Did not answer. He knelt beside the bed and opened his medical bag. His hands moved automatically, pulling out instruments he had not touched in 15 years. Scanner, diagnostic tools, medicine containers that were probably expired. He ran the scanner over the female's body. The device was old, but it still worked. Numbers and images appeared on its small screen, studied them carefully, and his face became serious. "What is your name?" he asked. The female answered. "How long have you been sick?" "Many, many months. It started small, tired all the time. Then the pain came, then my skin began to change." Looked at the scanner readings again. He knew what he was seeing. He had seen it before during the war, but he had seen it in humans, not. "Radiation poisoning," he said quietly. "Slow decay from exposure during the war. The weapons we used. They left traces. Those traces are still inside you, destroying your body from within." Closed her eyes. "So the war is still killing us, even now, even after 20 years. "Can you save her?" Lyra asked. Her small hand held her mother's gray fingers. "Please, can you save her?" Looked at the child. He saw the hope in those glowing eyes, the desperate, fragile hope that he had the power to fix everything. He had seen that hope before, in the eyes of soldiers who were bleeding out, in the eyes of families waiting for news, in the eyes of that human girl he could not save, the one who still visited his dreams. "The treatment exists," he said slowly. "Medicine that can clean the radiation from her body, but I do not have it. The medicine is in the colony's central hospital, and the hospital will not treat." "Then we will get the medicine," Lyra said. "We will steal it." "It is not that simple. The medicine must be given correctly. The process takes many hours. One mistake could kill her faster than the poison." Elder had followed them. He stood nearby, listening. His anger had faded, replaced by something else, something that might have been hope, though he tried to hide it. "You know how to do this?" asked. "You know how to give this treatment?" "I was a combat medic for 22 years. I treated radiation cases many times." Paused. "But I have not practiced medicine in 15 years. I am old. My hands shake. I might fail." "Might is better than nothing," whispered from her bed. "We have been dying slowly for years, all of us. One by one. The colony ignores us. Other humans hate us. We have no doctors, no medicine, no hope. You are the first human to even look at us without disgust." Stood and walked to the warehouse door. He looked out at the rain, at the dark sky, at the distant lights of the colony that did not care about the people dying in its shadows. He thought about his quiet shelter, his waiting death, his drawer full of dusty medals. He thought about the war, the killing, the faces of enemies who were also people, also someone's family, also worthy of life. He thought about all the reasons to walk away, to return to his empty life and wait for the end. Then he thought about Lyra, about her desperate knock at midnight, about her courage to beg a human for help. "I will need supplies," said finally. He did not turn around. "I cannot do this with what I have. I need to contact someone." "Who?" asked. "What human would help us?" Pulled out an old communication device from his bag. He had not used it in years. He was not even sure it still worked. "Someone who owes me a debt," he said. "Someone who might remember what it means to be a doctor." He pressed a button and waited. The rain continued to fall. They continued to watch. Somewhere in the colony, a woman received a message she never expected. And in the warehouse, a dying mother held her daughter's hand and dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, hope was still possible. The communication device remained silent, stared at it, waiting for an answer that might never come. Around him, they had returned to their places, but their eyes still watched him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. He needed to think. He needed to clear his mind. The weight of what he was about to do pressed down on him like a mountain. "I need some air," he told Lyra. "Stay with your mother. I will return." The child nodded, her glowing eyes following him as he walked toward the warehouse door. Outside, the rain had slowed to a gentle fall. The thunder had moved away, becoming a distant rumble. The sky was still dark, but somewhere behind the clouds, morning was coming. Walked through the empty streets of the industrial district. His feet found their way without thinking, following paths that memory had kept alive. He had been here before, many years ago, when the district was still alive, when he was still alive. He walked until he reached a small plaza. In the center stood a monument made of black stone. It rose toward the sky like a pointing finger, covered with names carved in white letters. Thousands of names, tens of thousands. The Colony Memorial, the place where humanity remembered its dead from the Outer Rim Wars. Stood before the monument and looked up. The names stretched far above his head, too many to count. Each name was a person. Each person was a story that ended too soon. Mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, friends and lovers, all gone, all taken by the war. He found the section he was looking for, the names from his unit, the people he had served with, the people he had failed to save. Private, he was only 19. He loved to sing old songs from Earth. A blade took his life on the third day of the invasion. Sergeant, she was tough and kind at the same time. She died protecting wounded soldiers who could not run, held her hand as she passed. Lieutenant, he was best friend. They had trained together, fought together, survived together, until they did not survive together anymore. Died on Prime in the final battle that destroyed the... You died because of them, whispered to the names. They killed you, they took you from this world, and now I am trying to save them. What would you think of me? The names did not answer. They never did. Sat on a wet bench facing the monument. The rain touched his face like cold fingers. He closed his eyes and let the memories come. The war had been terrible. Both sides had done terrible things. Humans burned cities, massacred human colonies. The hatred grew with each battle, each death, each act of revenge. Remembered the day everything changed for him. The Battle of Prime, the final push to end the war. His unit was advancing through the ruins of a city when they found the prisoners. A group of mostly civilians huddled in a basement. They were wounded, dying, children crying, adults begging for help. The same glowing eyes that he now saw in Lyra and her people. His commander at the time had ordered them to move on. There was no time to help the enemy. The mission came first. Had obeyed. He had walked past those dying without stopping. He had chosen his squad over the enemy wounded. It was the right tactical decision. Every military manual would agree. But in his heart, he knew the truth. He had not made a tactical decision. He had made a choice based on hatred. He had let them die because they were the enemy, because they had killed his friends, because helping them felt like betrayal. After the war, there was a tribunal. Someone had reported what happened, was investigated, questioned, examined. In the end, he was cleared. No laws were broken. There were enemy combatants. Treating them was optional. The law said he was innocent. His heart said otherwise. Opened his eyes and looked at the monument again. Among those thousands of names, one stood out. Not a soldier, but a commander, colonel. She had been different from the others. In a war filled with hatred, she had somehow kept her humanity. She had saved a hospital ship during the war, going against direct orders to destroy it. The ship carried hundreds of wounded, including children. When asked why she did it, her answer was simple. Because they were wounded, because they needed help, because I became a soldier to protect people, not to kill children. She was punished for her decision, demoted, transferred, but she never said she was wrong. And when the war ended, when the anger faded and people began to think clearly again, many realized that she had been the bravest of them all. Had served under her for a short time before the end. He remembered something she told him, a few days before she died of wounds that never fully healed. Hate is easy, she had said. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were strong. It feels good. It feels right. But it is a poison that destroys you from within. Healing is harder. Forgiving is harder. That is why those things matter, because they are harder. He had not understood then. He had been too young, too angry, too full of pain. But now, sitting in the rain before the monument of the dead, her words returned to him. Hate is easy. Healing is harder. Was that why he had stopped being a medic? Not because he was tired, not because his hands shook, but because he could not face what he had become. A healer who chose not to heal. A doctor who walked past dying patients because of their species. His communication device buzzed. Someone was answering his call. The voice was female, surprised. Is that really you? I thought you were dead. He stood from the bench. I am alive, barely. I need your help. Doctor, they had served together in the war. She was a field surgeon, brilliant and quick. After the war, she had returned to civilian medicine. Now she worked at the colony's central hospital, respected and successful. She also owed a debt. During a battle, she had been trapped under fallen equipment. Enemy fire was everywhere. Had carried her to safety, taking a wound that still ached in cold weather. What kind of help? Asked carefully. Told her. He told her about Lyra's knock at midnight, about the hiding in the industrial district, about slow death from radiation poisoning, about the medicine that could save her life. When he finished, there was a long silence. "You are asking me to steal medical supplies," said finally. "You are asking me to risk my career, my freedom, my entire life, for the enemy." "I am asking you to be a doctor," replied. "The way you used to be, the way we both used to be before the war took everything from us." "This is madness. The colony hates if anyone finds out we will both go to prison, or worse." "I know." "Then why do you care? After everything they did to us, after everything we lost, why does it matter if a few more of them die?" Thought about the question. He thought about Lyra's tears, about gray skin, about the prisoners he had walked past 20 years ago. "Because I am tired of being a ghost," he said. "I have spent 15 years hiding from what I became during the war, 15 years pretending that the hatred was justified, but it was not. Hate is easy. Healing is harder. I want to try the harder path. I want to see if I can still be the person I was meant to be." Another silence. Could almost hear thinking, weighing the risks against the rewards. "There is a service entrance at the back of the hospital," she said at last. "I can open it at 3 in the morning. Bring something to carry the supplies. And if we get caught, I never spoke to you." "Understood, thank you." "Do not thank me yet. We might both regret this." The connection ended. Looked at the monument one last time. The names of his dead friends stared back at him, silent and unchanging. "I hope you can forgive me," he whispered. "I hope you understand why I have to do this." Then he turned and walked back toward the warehouse, where a dying mother waited for the medicine that might save her life. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking apart, and somewhere in the distance the first light of dawn was beginning to appear. The hospital's service entrance opened without a sound. Stood in the doorway, her face hidden in shadows. She pushed a large container toward without speaking. Inside were bottles, tubes, machines, and tools. Everything needed to treat radiation poisoning. "This is enough for one treatment," whispered. "Maybe two if you are careful. The hospital will notice the missing supplies by morning. You have until then." "Thank you," said. "I told you not to thank me." She looked at him with eyes full of worry. "Be careful, old friend, and do not fail. If you are going to risk everything for this, make sure it matters." She closed the door. Was alone again, standing in a dark alley with stolen medicine and a mission that might destroy him. He carried the container back to the warehouse. The trip took longer than expected. The container was heavy and his old body complained with every step. But he did not stop. He could not stop. Somewhere in that warehouse, a mother was dying. When he arrived, they were waiting. Elder helped carry the container inside. Others cleared a space near his bed. They moved quickly and quietly, understanding the importance of what was happening. Opened the container and examined the supplies. Had given him good equipment, modern tools, fresh medicine, better than anything he had used during the war. But his hands were shaking. His heart was beating too fast. 15 years. 15 years since he had done this. What if he had forgotten? What if his skills had faded? What if he made a mistake that killed instead of healed? Lyra appeared beside him. She looked at the equipment with wide, curious eyes. "You are scared," she said. It was not a question. Nodded. There was no point in lying. "I am scared too," Lyra said. "But my mother always tells me that being scared is okay. Being scared means you care about something. People who are never scared do not care about anything." Looked at the small alien child. So young, so wise, so much like the children he had treated during the war before he stopped treating anyone at all. "Your mother sounds smart," he said. "She is, please save her." Took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and remembered. He remembered his training. He remembered his experience. He remembered the hundreds of patients he had treated successfully before the war took his spirit away. He opened his eyes and picked up the first tool. "Bring her closer to the light," he said. His voice was different now, stronger, more certain, the voice of a medic preparing for battle. "I need to see clearly." They obeyed. They moved his bed to the spot in the warehouse, set up his equipment around her. Tubes and wires connected to machines. Bottles of medicine hung from poles that they built from broken metal. He contacted through his communication device. Her face appeared on the small screen, watching from her apartment. "I will guide you through the procedure," she said. "Do exactly what I tell you. Do not rush. Do not panic. We have time." The treatment began. Hour 1. Inserted tubes into his body. The medicine began to flow, entering her blood, searching for the poison that was killing her. She groaned in pain but did not wake. That was expected. That was good. Hour 2. The machines showed the medicine working. The radiation particles in her body were being captured, wrapped, prepared for removal. But her vital signs were unstable. Her heart was beating too fast. Adjusted the medicine flow just a little and watched the screens until she stabilized. Hour 3. A crisis. His body reacted badly to one of the medicines. Her breathing became shallow. Her skin turned darker gray. The watching began to panic. "Stay calm," his voice commanded through the device. "This happens sometimes. Give her the counteragent, the green bottle, 10 units, now." His hands moved before his mind caught up. He found the bottle. He measured the dose. He injected it into the tube. Seconds passed like hours. Then his breathing improved. Her color returned. The crisis passed. Hour 4. Exhaustion began to pull at. His eyes wanted to close. His body wanted to rest. But he could not rest. Not yet. The treatment was entering the most dangerous phase. Lyra brought him water. He drank without stopping his work. Elder stood nearby, watching everything with his face. The anger in his eyes had transformed into something else. Respect, perhaps, or simply wonder. "You fight hard for someone you do not know," said quietly. "For someone from a species you have every reason to hate." "I have my reasons," replied. He did not explain. There was no time for explanations. Hour 5. The machines showed success. The radiation levels in his body were dropping. The poison was being cleaned away. Her skin was slowly returning to its natural lavender color. She would live. If nothing went wrong in the next hour, she would live. Allowed himself a small breath of relief, but he did not relax. The treatment was not finished. Anything could still happen. Outside the warehouse, the sky was changing. Dawn was coming. The darkness was fading into gray. Soon the hospital would discover the missing supplies. Soon questions would be asked. Searches would begin. They were running out of time. Hour 6. The final phase. Removed the tubes from his body. He bandaged the small wounds they left behind. He checked her vital signs one last time. Everything was stable. Everything was good. "It is done," he said. The words hung in the air. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Lyra let out a cry and threw herself onto her mother's bed, hugging the unconscious woman with all her small strength. "Mother," she sobbed. "Mother, wake up, please wake up." His eyes opened slowly. They were brighter now, closer to the glowing light that eyes should have. She looked at her daughter and a weak smile crossed her face. "Lyra," she whispered, "my little one, why are you crying?" "Because you are alive, because the healer saved you, because I was so scared, Mother. I was so scared." His eyes moved too. He stood exhausted, covered in sweat, his old body trembling from the effort of the past 6 hours. She reached out a gray hand toward him. "Human," she said, "you saved my life. Why?" Before could answer, a new sound filled the warehouse. The sound of engines, the sound of approaching vehicles, the sound of danger. Elder ran to the window and looked outside. When he turned back, his face was pale. "Colony security," he said. "They have found us, dozens of them, vehicles and drones. They are surrounding the building." Walked to the window and looked. Was right. Security vehicles were taking positions around the warehouse. Drones hovered in the air, their lights cutting through the early morning mist. Armed officers were moving into formation. "Attention," a loud voice called from outside. "Humans and inside the building. You are surrounded. Come out with your hands visible. Any resistance will be met with force." Lyra clutched her mother in fear. The other began to panic, moving toward the back of the warehouse, looking for ways to escape. But there was no escape. The building was surrounded. "They tracked the stolen supplies," said quietly. "They know I am here. They know what I did." Elder looked at him. "They will arrest you. They will punish you, all because you helped us." "Yes." "Then you should hide. Let us take the blame. We are already criminals in their eyes. One more crime makes no difference." Shook his head. He looked at Lyra, at the frightened who had shown him more trust than his own people had in years. "No," he said. "I am done hiding. I have been hiding for 15 years. It is time to face what I have done, all of it, the good and the bad." He walked toward the warehouse door. Called, her voice was weak but clear. "Whatever happens out there, know that you are a good man. Whatever they say, whatever they do, you are good." Did not look back. He pushed open the door and stepped outside, into the light of dawn, into the waiting arms of colony security. His hands were raised, his head was high. The forgotten veteran was forgotten no more. The morning light was cold and gray. Security drones circled overhead like metal birds waiting for prey. Armed officers stood in formation, their weapons pointed at the warehouse door, and in front of them all stood Captain, the commander of colony security. Walked toward him with slow, steady steps. His hands remained raised. His eyes did not look away. "You are," said. It was not a question. Former combat medic, decorated veteran, and now, apparently, a criminal who steals medical supplies and harbors enemy aliens. "They are not the enemy," replied. "The war ended 20 years ago." "The war never ends," stepped closer. He was younger than by at least 20 years, strong and confident, the kind of man who believed in rules without questioning them. "You broke into a hospital, you stole valuable medicine, you treated aliens who are here illegally. These are serious crimes." "I treated a dying woman, I saved her life. If that is a crime, then your laws are broken." His face hardened. "Step aside, old man. We are taking thee into custody. They will be processed and removed from the colony." "No." The word hung in the morning air. Behind, the officers shifted nervously. This was not how things usually went. Criminals did not say no to armed security forces. "What did you say?" asked quietly. "I said no. I will not step aside. I will not let you take them." "You are one old man against dozens of armed officers. You cannot stop us." "Maybe not, but I can stand in your way. I can make you go through me, and everyone will see it." Looked confused, then he looked around. A crowd had gathered. Colony residents, awakened by the noise and lights, had come to see what was happening. They stood behind the security vehicles, watching. Many held communication devices, recording everything. Among them was a young woman with sharp eyes and a determined expression. Was a journalist. She had spent months investigating the treatment of alien refugees in the colony. She had found rumors and whispers but never proof. Now, she was watching proof happen right before her eyes. "Captain," one of the officers said quietly, "people are recording. This is going on the network." Cursed under his breath. He had not expected an audience. He had expected a simple arrest, a quiet removal of troublemakers, not a public confrontation with a stubborn old veteran. "Disperse the crowd," he ordered. "Sir, there are too many, and more are coming." Saw his chance. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "Look at us," he called out. "Look at what is happening here. 20 years ago we won a war. We we destroyed there. We proved that humanity was strong. But what are we doing now?" He pointed at the warehouse behind him. "In there are survivors, old people who lost everything, Children who were born after the war ended. They hide in abandoned buildings because we give them no choice. They die slowly from radiation poisoning because our hospitals refuse to treat them. And when someone tries to help, we send armed soldiers to stop them. The crowd was silent, listening. Recording devices captured every word. "Is this who we are?" continued. "Is this what we fought for? To become the monsters we thought they were? To watch children suffer and call it justice? To let people die and call it peace?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others nodded in agreement. Many just watched, uncertain of what to feel. Stepped forward. "Enough, you are under arrest. Officers, take him into custody." 2 officers moved toward. He did not resist. He did not run. He stood still as they approached, ready to accept whatever happened next. Then a voice called out from the crowd. "Wait!" Everyone turned. An older woman pushed through the crowd. She was short and thin, with gray hair and tired eyes, but those eyes burned with something powerful. "My name is," she said. Her voice trembled but did not break. 30 years ago, I was on a colony ship that was attacked by. They captured us. They could have killed us, but they did not. They kept us as prisoners, and one of their doctors treated our wounds. She saved my life. A doctor saved my human life." She walked forward until she stood beside. "I never forgot that. I never told anyone because I was ashamed. Ashamed that the enemy had shown more mercy than we showed them. But I am not ashamed anymore. If this old man can stand up for what is right, so can I." Silence fell over the plaza. Then another voice spoke. "My brother served in the war." A young man stepped forward. "He killed many. He was called a hero, but he never felt like a hero. He drank himself to death because he could not live with what he did. Maybe if we had treated them better, he would not have felt so guilty. Maybe he would still be alive." More voices joined. More people stepped forward. They shared stories of the war, of pain, of regret, of moments of kindness that were buried under years of hatred. The crowd was no longer just watching. The crowd was participating. Recorded everything. Her device captured the faces, the voices, the raw emotion that was spilling out of people who had kept silent for too long. Captain stood frozen. His officers looked at each other, uncertain. This was not what they had trained for. This was not a situation they knew how to handle. One officer, a young woman with short hair, lowered her weapon. Then another. Then another. "Captain," the young woman said quietly, "maybe we should wait, get new orders, let things calm down." Looked at the crowd. He looked at his officers. He looked at the old veteran who should have been easy to ignore but had somehow become impossible to move. "Stand down," finally said. The words seemed to hurt him. "Secure the area, but no one enters without proper authorization. And someone get medical personnel here. If there are sick aliens inside, they need to be examined." It was not victory. It was not justice. But it was something. A small opening in a wall that had stood for 20 years. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Story spread across human space. It was watched by billions. The images of an old veteran standing alone against armed security became a symbol. People began to ask questions that had been ignored for too long. Why were they treated so badly? Why were refugees forced to hide? Why had the hatred lasted so much longer than the war? Aid organizations began to arrive at New Colony. Medical teams set up clinics in the industrial district. Food and supplies were distributed to the forgotten ones. Policies were reviewed. Laws were questioned. Not everyone agreed with the changes. Many still hated many still believed they deserved to suffer. The anger did not disappear overnight, but it was no longer the only voice. Other voices were speaking now. Voices of mercy, voices of reason, voices of hope. Returned to his shelter after the crisis ended. He expected to be alone again, to go back to waiting for death in silence. But his door was never quiet anymore. Lyra visited often. She brought her mother, who grew stronger every day. Skin had fully returned to its natural lavender color. Her eyes glowed bright. She walked and talked and laughed, alive in ways she had not been for years. Other came too. They brought food and gratitude and stories of their lives before the war. Elder came one evening and sat within silence for a long time. "I hated you," finally said. "I hated all humans. For 20 years, hate was all I had." "I understand," replied. "I hated too. But you saved her anyway. You risked everything for people who were your enemies. Why?" Thought about the question. He thought about Colonel and her words about healing being harder than hate. He thought about the prisoners he had walked past during the war. He thought about all the years of emptiness that followed. "Because I was tired of being a ghost," he said. "Because hate is easy and I wanted to try the harder path." Nodded slowly. He reached out and placed his hand on shoulder. "Among my people," he said, "we believe that those who save a life become bound to it forever. You saved many of us in ways you do not yet understand. We are your family now, whether you want us or not." Looked at the old, he thought about the word family. He had not had family in many years. His parents were dead. He never married. He never had children. He had been alone for so long that he forgot what belonging felt like. "Family," he repeated. The word felt strange on his tongue. Strange, but not unpleasant. Lyra appeared in the doorway. She ran to and hugged him with her small arms. "Uncle," she said. They had given him a new name. He was no longer the forgotten veteran. He was Uncle, the healer who answered when no one else would. "What is it, little one?" he asked. "Mother says dinner is ready. She made human food tonight. She learned how to make something called rice. She says you have to come and tell her if she did it right." Smiled. It was a small smile, rusty from years of not being used, but it was real. "Tell her I am coming," he said. He stood from his chair and walked toward the door. Outside, the sun was setting over New Colony. The sky was painted with colors of orange and pink and gold. The sounds of the city drifted on the wind, a mixture of human and voices learning to exist together. The war was over. It had been over for 20 years, but only now, finally, was the healing beginning. Stepped outside and joined his new family for dinner. The forgotten veteran was forgotten no more, and in the end, that made all the difference.